Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dev Diary. Now we're going back to the old to-do list to work on yet another game that I've been wanting to do for quite a while. Now the concept is really simple. Take the original idea for the Game Boy game Resident Evil Gaiden, yes that is an actual game, and apply it to something like a roguelike or an RPG game. This means a top-down overworld with a turn-based / time-based combat system. Now, I've never worked on a turn-based mechanic before, so let's get to the code. The combat mechanic is today's main focus, which would all be done via a single struct. And so a ton of variables for enemies, player combat, and other systems would be needed to make the whole thing run. The first function is the add enemy constructor, which adds an enemy to our enemy list for battle. How many are added is based on the amount of arguments provided. The set attack function triggers the player's attack phase. The end attack function triggers the end of the player's attack phase. Variables are reset and a few other functions are called. The first of those functions is the check enemy function. This function loops through our enemy list. If all enemies have yet to be defeated, the battle continues and the entire process repeats. Else the next function is triggered, the end fight function. This function sets the post-battle scene based on the result argument provided. That post-battle scene simply waits for the player to confirm via key press that the battle is over, before initiating the end battle function. This function deletes the enemy list and the battle struct, officially ending the battle scene. Now, like most projects lately using structs, a ticker is the lifeblood, holding the entire thing together. First is the player attack phase. If the player runs out of time, the attack phase is ended. But if the player presses the action key before then, certain checks are made. Hitting the action key stops the player's mark from moving. And if the player manages to stop on the target mark exactly, they dish huge damage. If the player is within 5 frames of the mark, the damage is still pretty effective. And if the player is 10 frames off, the damage is minimal. Anything else is considered a miss, and thus no damage is dealt. Pressing a key also ends the player's attack phase. Next is the enemy phase, which I haven't gotten to yet, so for the time being simply counts 2 seconds and we're returned to the prompt menu. The prompt menu is where the player chooses actions and targets. First, key checks are made for navigational purposes. If the player is on the actions menu, they navigate the actions menu. And if in target mode, they navigate the available enemies. The action key works similarly. During the menu phase, the player can choose to attack, use an item, or run away. In the target phase, if the enemy targeted still has health, it will trigger the attack phase, and thus we loop through the process again. And as is tradition, the draw event for this very simple turn-based combat system is already a mess. First, enemies and their health are drawn to the screen. There are currently 3 different variations because I didn't have the time or patience to try and figure out the math. Following that are several variations of what are to be displayed in a box located in the lower third of the screen. With the game over screen displaying the results of the battle, the player attack phase displays the line and mark to hit, the enemy phase exists, and then there's the menu phase, which simply displays the 3 available actions for the fight. If it's not obvious by now, items have not been implemented yet, like at all. Regardless, this resulted in my first attempt at a turn-based combat system, which worked pretty well. The player's attack phase works about as well as it's going to right now, and everything else is basically a simulated placeholder. And because this entire thing works within a single struct, everything is self-contained with no extra mess to worry about. And no doubt things are going to get way uglier from here on out, but so far things are looking pretty solid. There's still a ton of work to do and tweaks to be made, but overall I'm happy with the progress that we made this session, and I eagerly await next time to keep fleshing things out. But for now, that brings us to the end of today's Dev Diary. So if you enjoyed today's entry, consider leaving a like. Be sure to also subscribe and hit that bell if you haven't already, and let me know how you feel about today's progress. Have you ever created your own turn-based combat system? Leave your thoughts, opinions, and stories in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.